In this video, we're going to talk about a couple of tips I wish I knew at the beginning when playing Baldur's Gate 3. I'll be discussing them with the assumption that you're already playing it and are familiar with the game mechanics. If not, I created a presentation specifically to help beginners get up to speed with this. I'll leave a link to it in the description and on this screen. The clips we'll be seeing here are from early portions of the adventure to avoid any mid-game spoilers, and should be applicable regardless of our party's build. As our characters gain new levels, it's important for us to remember that builds are not locked off and can be easily adjusted with the help of an NPC named the Withers. Once he joins our camp, he'll be able to reset our stats and allow us to fine-tune it, minus the appearance. In fact, even the origin adventures can be tweaked, just in case we're not happy with the default settings. The reset service would set us back 100 gold per character, which is not too bad, but we should still save up as much as we can. A simple strategy at handling our party's gold expenses is by mitigating its expenditure in the first place through bartering, which means we should pick up as much sellable items as we can. The problem is, just like what I mentioned in a previous video, the Highlight Items button does not show everything. We'll have to scan the environments manually using a mouse cursor, or through the search function if we're using a controller. This is a good reminder to slow down as we explore the different landscapes, because a lot of the items in the world are easy to miss, like this bird's nest which contains a piece of jewelry, perfect for a trade-off. These kinds of items are obvious targets for us, right alongside weapons and armors. But we should also consider picking up things that are worth 1 gold, but barely weigh anything, like kitchenware and bones. They're worth quite a bit once they stack up and are very useful during an exchange. Rather than rummaging through our inventory for an item that would match the trader's offer, which in most cases would result in us going over the target, we can instead turn to our low-value items to top it off in the exact amount they want, and finish the deal fair and square. Typically, the only stuff that I would barter for are magical gears that have something relevant to my adventurers, or any piece of normal equipment that gives a small jump in performance. They're inexpensive and good enough until we find something to replace them with. The only thing I'm not frugal on are potions. I make sure that each party member have a decent amount in their packs. They're affordable with traders costing 24 gold each, and stocks replenish after every long rest. I also buy alchemical ingredients for them to eventually make some more, because one can never have too many of these things. You see, we can't solely rely on the cleric to heal the entire team every time one of them gets hit because of the limited spell slots. HP restoration should be more on using potions than healing spells, depending on the situation. Typically, I would only use their healing spell if somebody gets gravely wounded, so that specific adventurer can then top it off by chugging down on a potion, or use their own healing action, like the second wind of fighters. If the entire team is wounded after an encounter, I might use a group healing magic if the potion reserves are low, or maybe trigger a short rest instead. One trick that I like to do is to make Shadowheart carry extra potions and antidotes. This way, during combat, she can just focus on keeping everyone alive by tossing those items to other party members, in between harnessing magic and using the help action, which is a very powerful move that can alleviate several negative effects. As we progress through the game, acquiring items as we go, you might start to notice that the one who's carrying the spoils tend to get encumbered sooner than before. If this happens to you, the most likely cause of that are camp supplies, tucked away on this bag. They have no use outside of our party's resting area, and what we can do is to highlight them all, open the contextual menu, and send to camp. This also works with other objects like books and notes, for example, if you prefer to archive them. When it comes to those two things, my initial mistake was I just picked them up and gave them a read once my characters are at rest in the camp. From a role-playing perspective, it makes sense. However, in a lot of cases, the information found within them are tied to where they are found. My advice is to read them on the spot so we have some context to what's going on with the immediate surroundings. I'm not sure if you experience this too, but sometimes I get too focused on character progression and combat that I tend to gloss over some details. Reading notes and books as they are found is also a great way to slow our pacing down. Besides, reading a dozen of them while we're in the camp isn't exactly an exciting thing to do. I'd rather have conversations with the team. That place, by the way, is accessible at any time. Initially, I thought we could only visit it once we're done for the day, but it turns out we can come and go as we please. This is very useful if we want to swap out some of our party members and adjust their composition, which is a wide and possibly complex subject that warrants their own separate videos. For now, I will tell you of 3 observations. First off, many lineups can work when dealing with a number of enemies equal to our own party, but things start to get complicated when we're outnumbered, or some of them are at a higher level. Just in case you're having trouble in these scenarios, a team configuration that consistently worked for me are 2 frontliners, a cleric, and a long-range damage dealer. The ones diving into battle can be 2 fighters of different specializations, or maybe 1 fighter paired with a barbarian, etc. And the one sniping at enemies from afar can either be a rogue or a mage, but I usually won't have both at the same time. Try this out and see if it works for you next time you run into trouble. Second, regardless of our arrangement, in my opinion, all of our adventures should have a decent amount of constitution. In other CRPGs like Pillars of Eternity, there is a formation system, which means we can position fragile adventurers in the back, making them less likely to get hit. Unfortunately, Baldur's Gate 3 has no such thing in place. We can direct low HP characters to certain spots where they are a bit more safe or make them take cover behind a wall, but in general, everyone is at risk, so glass cannon builds are perilous. If I had to suggest a value, I would say a minimum score of 14 for starters would work quite well with any build, maybe more if they're meant to fight up close. And third, there's something I noticed about the jump bonus action that characters who have a high strength skill can take advantage of. Here we have Lae'zel, who by default has a very high score of it at 17. If we exhaust her combat movement, you'll see that the jump is disabled, but if we do that first, we can still move up to 6 meters afterwards. This means we can use jump to extend our movement range, in case the target is just a bit out of reach, and be able to attack in the same round. If we activate that bonus action and point it where we want to go, as long as there's no not enough movement prompt, it can be done. Those are the tips that I have for you today. Hopefully you'll find them to be of great use. Thank you for watching.